DA leader John Steenhuisen has called for unity amongst opposition parties as they work to unseat the ANC in the national elections next year. Steenhuisen says the UDM, the ACDP and the new Xiluva party by Bongani Baloyi have rejected the DA's call for a Moonshot Pact. The pact is the official opposition party's attempt to prevent what Steenhuisen has termed a doomsday coalition between the ANC and the EFF after the national elections next year. The proposal aims to have like-minded opposition parties band together in a coalition. We're delivering a virtual update on the progress of the pact. Steenhuisen urged opposition parties to unite against the ANC. So to discuss this further, perhaps what this pact also means, we're joined via Zoom by political analyst Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Prof, good afternoon. Thanks for your time here on the SABC.
Thank you very much for having me.
What is your view about the Moonshot Pact? Is it justifiable in fighting for the needs of the people as well as proper representation?
I think at the moment there is no opposition party that can dislodge the ANC by itself, despite the fact that the ANC has not done much in terms of promoting development for the majority. For instance, the DA is sitting at 20%, even though it is the second largest opposition party. The same goes to the EFF, which is sitting at 10%. So I think by and large, what gives rise to coalition formations is a lack of majoritarianism and also political fragmentation. But the DA has been accused of having a winner-takes-all mentality and also bullying other coalition partners. No wonder some opposition parties are critical of this proposal.
Prof, we heard that some parties like the UDM, the ACDP and even Xiluva have now rejected the pact. And do you think that, just on the back of what you've echoed, the DA may succeed in bringing together these opposition parties under one goal? The question is, how are they going to hold each other accountable, stabilize, perhaps also reset public institutions if they do come into power? Perhaps given the different ideologies also.
Yeah, I think sometimes as a country we tend to be too hard on ourselves because South Africa doesn't have a long-standing history of coalition formations. The National Party during apartheid dominated the political landscape. So I think opposition parties have no choice but to join forces and work side by side. But I think the DA needs to have a change of heart and stop its arrogance of thinking that when it ascends to power, it has come to power by winning outrightly. So I think that seems to be posing a threat to the relationship that opposition parties have. But opposition parties, they have no choice but to work together.
So on the back of that, how representative are they then going to be in addressing the needs of citizens, given the state of the country at large?
Yeah. My view is that there's a connection between coalition formations and the PR system, which demands that opposition parties, they get seats proportionally. So I think that needs to be taken into account. Of late, we've seen opposition parties that have maybe 2 seats or 1 seat coming into power, becoming mayors and so on. So I think they need to work on that seats must be allocated proportionally. But the other challenge that we have is that if you look at coalition formations of late, they seem to be falling apart. So the challenge is that there seems to be a missing link between coalition formations and some provisions of conflict management. So I think the political elite have a tendency to rush into forming these coalition formations or arrangements without developing a mechanism to deal with their own internal contradictions.
Yeah, which ultimately also affects service delivery. Speaking of which, I wanted to speak about the dynamics of the DA to date, the fragmentation of the party at this point. When we're looking at the changing of voter behavior, new social interests, how do they appeal to the new interest groups who have different needs and demands, given where we're headed into 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, I think there is a mentality amongst young people that, maybe the struggle is over, or there is no point in them voting, given the fact that there are no services which are rendered to them. My view is that there is a connection between a lack of development and a lower voter turnout. So when there is a slow pace of service delivery, that tends to make people to lose interest in terms of showing up at the polls during elections. But I think the way out of that is that the IEC needs to engage in road shows. It needs to educate young people about the centrality of public participation, because election is a form of public participation. And when there's a lower voter turnout, it does pose a threat to our democracy. And it begs the question as to whether can we accept the democratic outcomes, of elections, or does a lower voter turnout not beg the question about the legitimacy of the results if people have not participated on a large scale?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just in conclusion, Prof, it's electioneering season. We know that official campaigning kicks off about 6 months before. Some parties have begun to show off, what they're about and what they have to offer. How can we at this point separate this Moonshot Pact from electioneering by the DA and those who have now affiliated themselves to the Moonshot Pact?
Well, I think because one-party dominance is a thing of the past, and that the hegemony of the ANC of late has been dealt with a blow. We've seen the ANC having a downward electoral trajectory. So I think there is, a sense that maybe the ANC might lose power. No wonder opposition parties have been strategic in terms of pitching different proposals, because the possibility that the ANC might lose power is not far-fetched. So opposition parties have no choice but to work together. Even though people are asking questions as to if coalition formations at local government level are not working. Are they going to work on a larger scale if the ANC loses power in the upcoming general elections?
And only time will tell. We're heading into 2024, perhaps also going to live in the ripple effects thereof based on what the outcomes are. Prof, let's leave that conversation there for now, though. Thank you for your time here on the SABC. Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, a political analyst, weighing in on the back of John Steenhuisen, having delivered a virtual update on the progress of the Moonshot Pact. He just really coming out to urge opposition parties to unite against the ANC. This, as we head into the 2024 elections. Perhaps a way to see what the outcomes of that will be for the citizens of the country.